Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. You should be used to us by now, but if you're new, my name is Laz Michaelides, and on the screen opposite me is my co-host, Mr. Felipe Amorim. How's it going, man?
All good, man. How's it going there?
Fantastic. Yeah, all good, thanks. Not too bad. Just, carrying on with life, normal. What about you?
Yeah, well, not it's not as quiet as in the countryside, but it's a fairly quiet Saturday morning, Soho. Can't hear any noises from the street. Amazing.
I feel like when I used to live in London, there were days where sort of I don't know, I'd say like 95% of the time you wake up and then you got your noise, you got the hustle and bustle, you got all the life going on. And then there was just one day every 3 weeks where nothing's happening. It's just where's everyone gone? It's a ghost town.
Well, I know, judging by people's behaviors on last night's gig, that I think everyone's just smashed. And
they're all recovering from hangovers.
Yes, everyone is having a massive hangover now. Anyway,
brilliant stuff. Anyway,
not me.
Not you. No, he's too professional to play drunk.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce this album, because Felipe chose it? So we're doing an album today. The album we're doing is The Police, Reggatta De Blanc. And Felipe, why did you choose it?
Well, I chose this one because I think we needed to talk about The Police, of course, and I think this is their best album, in my opinion.
Have you listened to much of their other stuff?
Yes, yeah. I think this one is, in my opinion, again, we choose albums not only based on their importance for rock music, but on personal taste as well, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to choose, most of the time, we're not going to choose albums that no one has ever heard of, but but this one specifically sounds really like a band attempting to create stuff together, and I love this. We talked about this a million times. I love albums that are created and produced by a band in a true sense of the word, like in this case, a 3-piece band jamming together and writing songs, and the vibe, and you can tell that vibe is there. The other thing for me is it's quite unpredictable. Some songs you think there's maybe a strong chorus is going to come, and then they just have an instrumental riff going on, and then it's like I like this element of surprise that you have in some songs, I think it's very different to everything that was being done at the time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's very much a jammy album, isn't it, in that sense? Because I want to do some research. They didn't rehearse any songs before recording this album. They went. I read somewhere where they said they didn't rehearse any songs. They went in and they said, "Right, who's got a song?" And they took it from there.
Exactly, and it's funny because they were already successful, but they didn't have a number one hit, if I'm not wrong. They got two UK number one singles. If this one is "Message in a Bottle" and "Walking on the Moon."
Yeah,
and so they charted really well, number one. Come on, but before that, I mean, they already had a style. They knew what they were doing, I guess.
Well,
but
they were tampering. Sorry, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a style, they had a concept of what the band was, but they didn't have songs.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, that the classic struggle for creative control, the clash between bands and labels. I don't know how strong that was with their label, but they decided to record this album using money they made from the first album. So they took their own money, their own profit from the first album, and I couldn't find the exact budget, but it's.
I know what it is.
What is it?
£2,000.
You kidding me? Yeah, I've seen some people say it could be between £6,000 and £9,000.
No, it's less than that,
yeah, mind you, £2,000 in 1979 was some money, but still very, very, very cheap for a mainstream band. I mean, they were getting big at the time. But the idea was like, if we're paying for this, if we're recording a cheap studio with a not so well-known producer, the album was produced, we need to mention his name, Nigel Gray. Yeah, Nigel Gray, that's him. And The Police, so the band and him. He was doing sound engineer and producing, and they were producing with him. So they had total creative control. I think that was the main idea. That was
Well,
yeah, that's why they put the money in.
a bit of background from the album. Because I watched a documentary on it. It's called "The Making of Reggatta De Blanc," and
Oh wow.
it's quite interesting because they had come from this punky background where they were very much punk musicians. Sting and Andy Summers, definitely more so. Where Stuart Copeland, he had more of a jazzy side, didn't he? He came from a jazz side more, but punk was kind of ending in the UK, and they was making this transition to punk rock, making it a bit more accessible to audiences. New wave was coming in with all the synths and everything. And they just, I don't know, what I didn't see on the documentary was who and why the reggae vibe was introduced. I don't know who said it or why they did it or who even liked it, but it's from their first album. The song Roxanne and another one, Can't Stand Losing You. They were the songs that were released in the UK and they flopped, but they took them to America and Roxanne became a huge success. And then they
That's
re-released it
insane.
in England and it was a success again.
Maybe because
So,
wait a minute, the guys across the pond are enjoying this song, so maybe
yeah,
it might be
maybe
good.
we should too. Yeah. So this is the Roxanne and the Can't Stand Losing You. They do have that. Well, more than just a reggae feel, they are kind of half reggae songs. So that's where I think the Police took that inspiration and said, well, hold on, we're onto a winning formula here. Let's try something different. Because at the same time, you've got this kind of ska revival going on in the
Yeah.
UK, bands like the Specials, doing their thing. The Specials are different though, because I definitely consider them way more ska than rock,
Hmm.
reggae, punk, like I'd consider the Police. But maybe the Police were the first band to kind of try this hybrid of punk, rock, and reggae.
And maybe some people wouldn't think that ska is a good thing to be mixed with rock music, and I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it, and a lot of it comes from the drumming, and it seems I've sent you a link, didn't it? This video of Stuart Copeland for I think Modern Drummer magazine, and he's going on about his approach to a backbeat. So for those who are not familiar with this musical term, a backbeat, well, it's basically the beats 2 and 4 of a bar. When you clap in your hands at the gig, if you do it properly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Some people clap on 1 and 3. I know, and that's really annoying. But we love everyone. We love even people who clap on 1 and 3. But I just so that when you hear rock music and pop music, and you have the backbeat as the foundation of the groove. You have the snare drum playing generally really loud on 2 and 4. And Stuart
Can I
Copeland
just add?
was,
Can I quickly
yeah,
just interrupt and say that this is the backbeat being on, so it's 1 2 3 4 1 2
yeah,
3 4. This doesn't just limit to one genre. There is a whole subgenre in heavy metal called groove metal, and bands like Pantera are famous for it. There's a famous song called Cowboys from Hell, which goes
yes,
and in metal, normally because of the strength, you're going to accent 1 and 3 before 2 and 4. But bands like Pantera and a lot of new metal like Korn, they would come out as well and actually say, well, no, screw this, we want to make it a groovy, dancey, so we'll put the emphasis on 2 and 4. So I'll put those songs in the playlist for you guys to hear. But Felipe, please carry on.
yeah. But
It's just explaining that it's more than just rock and pop, isn't it? You can groove in, it's actually a foundation of jazz. When I was
it
learning how
is,
to
yeah,
walk bass in jazz, my problem when I was learning jazz on bass is that I'd kept going boo doo 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 doo,
yeah,
and my
1 and
my
3.
tutor was like, "You've got to accent 2 and 4," and it was so hard to get my mind around it, going do 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 do
Yeah,
do, and it
but
just swings much better.
so that's everywhere. Like jazz, blues, country, soul, pop. It's so the backbeats everywhere in popular music,
Yeah,
literally everywhere. If you listen to the radio, you're going to be listening to the snare on the backbeat all day.
yeah.
Then Stuart Copeland, according to himself in that video, it says, "I'm a spoiled brat, so I decided to be stubborn and not play the backbeat." So that's like, come on, mate. Everyone needs a backbeat. But he said, no, we don't. We can do
Yeah.
something different. So he plays around the backbeat. Sometimes he keeps a 4 on the floor, which the kick drum, boom, 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 all the way. and he plays like a percussionist around the backbeat, like on the off beats all the time. And that is, that's obviously very common in reggae music. So, so it does a lot of that. And there's loads of African influences and percussive ideas in general. So I think that one interesting thing about this album is the fact that Andy Summers, although he's a phenomenal musician, it sounds to me like he wanted to just leave as much room as possible for the other two guys. The guitar, and normally in a rock band, you have the guitar as the lead instrument. And here, he plays rhythmically most of the time, instead of soloing all the time. And there's not much distortion or any effects that make the guitar stand out. So the guitar is there, like, sometimes playing a reggae rhythm pattern, but always very clean. And always like, and it kind of in the background, whilst the bass and the drums are, I would say, the lead instruments. It's really interesting.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And what's interesting is, do you remember, it's funny because we've never had 3 albums in a row where we've been able to make the link. But do you remember last week or 2 weeks ago, I said to you that it was funny that we did the Joshua Tree because that was about a band who went to America. And the album before that was Supertramp, who did the same thing about breakfast in America. So we made that link. And the link between the Joshua Tree and this album is how I believe, in agreement with you, Andy Summers really creates he uses the guitar to create atmosphere throughout the album, doesn't he? And again, we're finding an example of a rock band and a rock album. I know you can throw the words punk and reggae in there as well, even rock and roll, which we might get to in a few of the songs. But it's a rock album, and the guitar is not the star of the show again. It is, I'd say, in order, Sting's vocals, then second, Sting's bass and Stuart's drums, then third, Andy's guitar, which is funny, isn't it? Because that's not a normal rock structure.
So we talked about Andy Summers, and we talked about Stuart Copeland. Now we need to talk about Sting. Come on.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I just wanted to talk about the drums quickly because I thought if we're going to talk about instruments, before we get into the songs, I did have some notes on all the instruments. I agree with you. Yeah, the percussive element, the documentary I was watching, someone said that Stuart Copeland's drumming was almost like Art Baker, the jazz drummer, just taking random percussive moments and throwing them in every now and then. This was hilarious. The band preferred Stuart Copeland playing reggae because when he played punk, he'd speed up.
Oh, yes. He was famous for speeding up live, wasn't it?
Do you know the other thing I noticed is the virtue? I feel all of these guys in this album perform to a virtuoso style level. Maybe that's a bit too far, but they are playing fantastically intricate and complex lines. And specifically Stuart Copeland, he's got that hi-hat solo, or I'd say solo in quotation marks, the hi-hat section in Walking on the Moon, in between the first chorus and the second verse. It does this dun dun dun, just these little bits,
and then displacing accents and stuff.
Exactly, and even that the solo, the start of Reggatta De Blanc. Like that, it just sounds like a jazz solo to start off with. I just thought that it was, it was another moment where the album was not filled with drum solos galore. Drum solos and or drum fills. They're not crazily filled throughout the album, but yet his drumming in those unique moments, Reggatta De Blanc intro, Walking on the Moon, hi-hat thing, they really do take the musicianship to another level. And as a drummer,
and it's not, exactly, because it's not soloing. It's being creative with the rhythm. It's making the beat interesting. It's exploring the offbeats, exploring the spaces between the beats to make it interesting. I think it's very much an approach of a percussionist. When you have a percussionist in a band, which doesn't happen in rock music very often, the percussionist would be playing around the groove because the drum and the bass player are providing the groove. Yeah. So the percussionist doesn't need to play the groove. He plays around it. He adds layers and he explores the spaces between the beats. And Stuart Copeland does that himself. He does the beat and the offbeat. He plays, he keeps the groove going whilst using the spaces in between the beats,
Why do you think that is as a drummer? Do you think this is because of his jazz influence, or do you think
I
he did
think
this
he
for the
had.
music?
I think he had the influence of African music as well. I think
Yeah.
I actually think he lived in other countries, not only. So I don't know. I need to research his background, but he's.
Mm.
I've seen some interviews when he mentions having experiences abroad and traveling and playing with other musicians and getting to know music from different traditions in different countries. And
Mm.
I think that's what it is. He wasn't trying to stick to one genre or to and he was really far from punk. Really, if you think about the other two guys, well, they sound more to me like two punk musicians getting into something new. And for me, it was like Stuart Copeland was like, "Well, I was never a punk musician anyway. Now I'm free to
Yeah.
do my own thing." And this stubbornness, this fact that he didn't want to play the obvious grooves and the obvious choices for most songs, it really makes him a unique drummer and very creative. I think he's
Mm.
really well regarded in the drumming community.
Yeah.
No one is ever talking about technique or some people criticize him for this like speeding up thing, or he can't keep time kind of stuff. Well, the thing is without a doubt one of the most creative and influential drummers ever. So
Mm.
that's what it is. So
Brilliant. Well, moving on from
and
drums. Go on.
okay, no. Before we move on, we can, I have to mention that he plays a huge role in the album as songwriter and singer in one song, and he plays guitar in some songs. So
It's
yeah,
very
it's
cool. It's
yeah.
just more
So
than just a drummer's performance. He's given more for this album, isn't he, than a
exactly, yeah.
drummer
The
would
song,
expect to.
yeah. On any other day, the seventh song of the album, he plays pretty much all the instruments,
Really? Wow.
and he's singing as well. So
Now that's
yeah,
very funny, that one. We'll come
yeah.
back to that
Well,
after. Or,
yeah,
yeah, we'll come back to that. I'll just because I just wanted to touch on the bass playing.
yes,
Because so Sting, he's one of those bass players where you do wonder if there's anything he can't do, because
mm,
you can hear it in this performance of this album. It is a reggae-based playing style, but it's quite complex. Now, the thing about reggae bass is that you normally just mess around with what they call triads, which is just the root, the third, and the fifth of a chord. And because that's all you need. The
yeah,
root tells you the chord you're playing, the third tells you whether it's major or minor, and the fifth is like an embellishment. It's like just makes it sound beefier. So if you listen to any song, I'm thinking The Harder They Come by, I think it's Jimmy Cliff, we'll
yeah.
put that in the playlist. The bass is very simple, and often you're not really playing, there's a cover of Cat Stevens' Wild World by a band, I can't remember their name, but I'll put it in the playlist. And it's just simple bass playing with reggae bass. But Sting very obviously deviates here, doesn't he? It's very complex, some of these bass lines, very intricate as well.
Yeah, and it took me a while to actually uh, pay attention to his bass playing. Sorry to the bassists out there. It's not that I don't. It's not that I don't give a fuck about the bass. It's just the because it's such like a phenomenal band leader and lead singer that sometimes that's all people can think about
Yeah,
when they listen.
yeah.
And obviously he's got like an extensive catalog as a solo artist, and most people know him as a solo artist rather than the Police frontman. And he played with some of the best session musicians in the world, some great jazz players, and recorded amazing albums, exploring different styles. And his voice, I mean, everyone tries to sound like him, isn't it, in the
Yeah.
pop world?
Very
I mean,
unique, isn't it? Very
yeah,
distinctive.
yes. And then people try to emulate that, and well, no one can actually sing like him, and he's still a phenomenal singer now to this day. And I think Bruno Mars sounds a lot like him. I think think about it.
Yeah.
He probably
Oh God,
tries
that's
to.
crazy, bro. That's a
Yeah,
great comparison.
listen, because it's the same sort of like high pitched pop
Is
vocal.
there any particular Bruno Mars song you heard that you thought that I'll put in the playlist for this?
What was the one that God, I'm not a big
Uh,
fan, so I don't know. Wait a minute,
Uptown
Locked Out
Funk,
of Heaven.
Locked Out of
Locked Out.
Heaven. Yeah.
Yeah, Think
Oh my
about
God, you're right. And it's almost got
yes,
that reggae vibe as well, isn't it?
yes, exactly.
Brilliant,
I
bro.
mean,
That's
if
brilliant.
I mean, I never read an interview with Bruno Mars or anything, but I'm pretty sure he's into Sting and Solo Career and the Police. He has to be. Come on, but yeah. So yeah, he's got that like amazing voice that everyone recognizes, and but no one talks about his bass playing. And
Mm,
also, one thing is when you have total control and you're a solo artist, and it's all about you, and you in charge, right? When you're a member of a band, doesn't matter if you were the most important guy in the band, you're going to be collaborating, and
yeah.
that brings another side of your creativity. Again, talking about the fact that this album was done in such like how how can I put it? They didn't prepare, right? They were not
Yeah. Yeah.
prepared, right? So they were not like, yeah, we got a bunch of songs, let's go there and record it. So low budget. They recorded everything in a total time of 4 weeks, although
Yeah.
it took a few. I think it took a few months to actually do it. But they only spent a total of 4 weeks in studio. I think they
Yeah.
were touring. So, and they did all of it jamming. That is a recipe for disaster sometimes. So that's why
Yeah.
you have to recognize how good those guys are. If you get into a studio not having, a single song finished, obviously they had to kind of fill the gaps, right? And they added the song right at the end. No Time This Time. Yeah, that's the last song, which was the B-side of So Lonely from the first album.
Ah,
So they added it to the album. So that's what sounds more like the first album. Doesn't
yeah.
sound more, but it's a great song, in my opinion. I really enjoy that one.
Mm.
It's very different. Anyway, so and obviously the instrumental song, the title track, Reggatta De Blanc, it could, I don't know, I'll dare to say it's one of those things. Shall we just write an instrumental? I guess we don't have enough songs, but it's not Jazz Odyssey, is it? It has a structure to
Yeah.
it.
It's funny because actually that song, let me see, that song won Grammy for Best Rock Instrumental Performance in 1981.
See, it is a great song.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, I mean, the songs don't all sound like. It doesn't sound like, as you said, they went into this album, this recording process with an idea and a theme and a concept that they were going to get behind. It does really sound like they've just kind of churned out some songs, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be, but I don't think it was on this occasion. You mentioned Stuart Copeland's song on Any Other Day. I said
Yeah.
Stuart Copeland's song. It's funny, that one, because there's a bit of humor in there as well, I think, because you got the start where he says, "You want something corny? You've got it," and then the song kicks off, and it's kind of like this out of date rock and roll surf song, from America. It actually reminds me of a Zappa song called "Who Needs the Peace Corps." And it's just a joke, kind of talking like this in a song, just trying to get a song going. It's not really singing, it's not really talking, it's some both, just this odd kind of hybrid jazz fusion thing over a rock and roll beat. Kind of odd, isn't it?
It is, and it's the song is intended to be a joke, really, and he wrote on his website that the one thing he doesn't mention in the song clearly is the guy's birthday. That was his idea. It doesn't say that in the song, so they said that would like all these things going wrong, right, within this guy's life, or that could have, on any other day that would be fine, but not
Yeah,
today. But it doesn't say why it would be fine on any other day. But it's the
right.
guy's birthday. I love when a songwriter has got an idea that is not going to be explicit in the
Yeah.
lyrics, right?
And
So
it's nice.
in that case, he's thinking under a perspective of a guy who should be celebrating his birthday, but everything is going wrong.
Oh.
But he doesn't say in the lyrics, "It's my birthday." It's not that. I love that he decided to not put that information there.
Yeah.
So he's got a character. It's all fiction anyway. But the
Yeah.
fact is, like, even being a fictional character, you're not telling part of his story. It's really cool.
That was good.
Yeah.
Another song that has that rock and roll and surf feel is actually the one you mentioned. It's the last track of the album, called No Time This Time. And I find it kind of interesting because again, Stuart Copeland, we've got a jazz drum solo in the intro and in the outro as well. And it's nice
Yeah,
because, like I said, it's got that rock and roll feel going throughout the verses and everything. Yet in the
yeah,
chorus, it kind of resolves to a rocky chorus, just a pure rock chorus. And I think they do this really well throughout the album, they'll take a section and they'll make maybe they make the verse reggae and then they'll make the pre-chorus punky and then they'll resolve it to a rock chorus
yeah,
because they do it seamlessly, don't they? It's not like, oh,
yeah.
this is so obviously reggae. Oh, now they've decided to make a rock chorus. It just flows, doesn't it?
It does, and I think it's just there's a point I think for a songwriter or any performing musician that is if you can observe every idea from different genres and then forget about it and just play,
Yeah.
that is so hard to achieve. That's why everyone can practice and learn an instrument. Not everyone can be creative. Or everyone could be creative, of course, because you can actually, if you try really hard, if you keep practicing, if you keep trying, you can be creative as well. But it's about, as I said, just going from one idea to another without boundaries, without having to sound like something. And I think they achieved that probably because they had no songs previously written and no ties with the record label to the point that they needed to provide them with a commercial album or something that would be successful. So there's no, I think they kind of had a formula and a concept as a band, but not for the album or for any particular song. They're just like, this is who we are.
Yeah.
And we're just going to go there and play. And just going there and playing, that's like the most rock and roll attitude you can have as a musician. Just grab an instrument, play some notes. One example is, the Walking on the Moon, the second single of the album? I think it was.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah.
I think it's something.
Yeah, so it's the sixth track of the album, and it was a really successful single, number one in the UK. Although it didn't chart in America. See, we talked about the differences between America and the UK in terms of charts and stuff. So this song, Sting was in a hotel room, and he said he just jumped out of the bed, and he had this melody and lyrics walking around the room, and that was the main idea for the song, right? And then he wrote the riff, and then he thought it was a bit too stupid to say walking around the room, and said, can I come up with something even more stupid? Yes, which is Walking on the Moon, and it's about how you feel when you're in love, and you feel like it's like, walking on the moon, there's no weight.
I love that song. It's very much the most reggae one, isn't it? Sorry, I said it's very much the most reggae song on the album, I think.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and it's and what a way to write a song. You jump out of bed. Oh, got this idea. Let's play a riff on top of it and see how it goes.
Brilliant stuff.
Amazing, and that goes number one.
The other number one from the album was "Message in a Bottle," which is arguably the Police's most famous song. What's your opinions on that song?
Brilliant.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yes, I wasn't expecting any other answer. That was fine. Yeah. Brilliant.
No, I have a personal story about this one.
Go for it.
So back in the day, long time ago, I was playing with this pop band, or pop/rock band, and so I had to learn a bunch of songs because the band had gigs booked, and I had to join the band and learn the songs and play the gigs. And one of the songs was "Message in a Bottle," and as a musician, man, when you're learning, I don't know, 40 songs in 3 days, you don't necessarily learn all the details of the song.
Yes.
And it's just, you learn the structure, you know how to get to the end of the song sometimes, and that's enough if you're in a hurry to learn stuff. So I've learned loads of songs like that. And I remember it was 3:00 in the morning, and I started where I had a studio, so I could play without bothering my neighbors, so I could drum until what time I wanted, anytime I wanted to. So I started practicing that song at midnight, and it was 3:00 in the morning. I was still playing "Message in a Bottle" because I noticed, there's an extra, open hi-hat in this point of the song. That's so cool. Let me try that. And I was so obsessed with trying to replicate every small detail on the song because it's so exciting to play those parts that I couldn't stop, and I couldn't stop listening to it. And it's such an addictive song. I love it.
That's
yeah.
So I was going to say, that's really funny you mentioned that, because a couple of the notes I have here about the song are about fine details. First point, drums, the final verse, a ride cymbal comes in that isn't there on verse 1 and 2, and it changes it all. Like, I can't tell you, well, I can tell you why. It's the ride cymbal, just another little texture that just makes such a difference. And I always think of songs as a journey, and I think if you're going to tell me to start here, there has to be something at the end of the song for it to have been worth it, which is why I suppose, and I'm generalizing here, it's why I suppose I don't like pop music, because I feel it starts at one place and never really goes anywhere. But an obvious example to counter that would be Stairway to Heaven, because it starts down here, then it adds textures, adds layers, you get another groove coming in, the drums come in, you get the heavy section at the end, and then you come to the end of the journey, which is why I love kind of rock and metal music, because it kind of does explore that. With this, it's the same kind of thing, but to a much finer detail, just that tiny ride cymbal coming in. And the other aspect I had that I really liked about this is, we've mentioned already about the bass playing and how intricate it is. Just a quick something else. Sting's solo album, 10 Summoners Tales, has 2 songs on there that he's written in odd time signatures. There's a song called Love is Stronger Than Justice, which is in 7/8, and there's a song called 7 Days, which, if you can guess it, is in 5/4.
No, yeah, exactly. It's 9/7.
He does that, doesn't he? So check those out. They'll both be in the playlist. But just listen. It's just some proof that Sting is a very technical bass player, and you can see that in Message in a Bottle, because in the chorus it is fantastic, the bass playing, because it's so awkward and staggered. It goes message in a bottle, goes dum 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 dum, and it feels awkward. Those are triplets, I think, going over a 4 on the floor, I think, which shouldn't work. But again, the musicianship of these guys has just come to flourish.
It's
to do that on the first song on the album is brilliant.
Yeah, and if you do that kind of like weird rhythmic ideas, it might sound displaced at first, but once you loop it and you repeat that, and it becomes natural, and it sounds familiar.
I was going to say, as my hero Frank Zappa once said, he said, do it once and it's a mistake. Do it twice and it's a new arrangement. Exactly. Which is it, isn't it?
Exactly. And just one comment about this, which has everything to do with our conversation about the backbeat.
Yeah.
What happened in this recording is, like, you can clearly hear that Stuart Copeland is avoiding the backbeat for the whole verse, playing around, as I said, playing percussively. Mm-hmm. And when he gets into the chorus, now you have a straightforward rock groove, snare on 2 and 4. That's the backbeat right there. So it's a bit of like a tension and release kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Because you keep it tense by not playing the backbeat, and then you just go and play the backbeat. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
It's really cool, because then the chorus becomes more powerful, and it's just like, okay, this is the chorus, right?
Yeah.
And it's where you flirt with pop music. It's not totally, like, it's not 100% rock and roll. And again, that song specifically, and most of the album in general, is where you have, it's, some people would say, oh, this is a pop album, not a rock album. But yes and no. So, it could be a pop album by a rock band.
Yeah.
Or a rock album by a pop band.
Yeah. Or a generally accessible album by a reggae band.
Right.
Isn't it? Yeah. Fantastic. Exactly. And any other songs you wanted to sort of touch on? Because there's just a few bits I wanted to say. What I loved about this album is that there are some episodes, as you guys know, where I try and give musical examples of what of what songs I'm reminded by other songs. And I just do that so you guys can get a sense of what I'm hearing when I hear this thing. So I've got a few examples here. And the reason that I wanted to highlight these before we sort of talk any further about anything was that you're going to hear now from my examples how varied all the artists I'm going to give you are. I just said Frank Zappa. In "It's All Right for You," the verse is very, very similar to "Thunder and Lightning" by Thin Lizzy. And it's just this sort of staggered, aggressive approach. But yet that same song, "It's All Right for You," almost has a chorus that could be a Rolling Stones chorus. Like, they're just so different. "Bring on the Night," that sort of staccato guitar, just completely. The first thing I heard was "Could You Be Loved" by Bob Marley.
Yeah, but here's the thing: this song specifically for me, you have the reggae based bass line and percussion and stuff,
Yeah,
but you can hear the 80s approaching.
yeah,
There's an 80s vibe
yeah,
to that
yeah,
song.
yeah.
It's 1979. We're getting there.
Very much so.
know.
Do you know? But the other song that is very much signifying towards the 80s is "Contact," because that's got that hugely different synth bass at the end. Or not at the end, throughout the song, it's got that. I don't actually remember how it goes. I can't sing it, but it's like wow, wow, wow. It's got that bass that's hugely distorted and very effecty. And I thought that, when I was doing my research, I thought the Police were trying. Where did I read it? Let me see in my notes. But it's something like they were trying to get away from the new wave that was coming through. So a couple of genres people have associated this album with is obviously reggae, rock, post-punk, and someone has said new wave as well. So when I saw what new wave meant, new wave is pop influenced. So it's rock and punk influenced by pop. So maybe to making melodies more accessible, often encompassing a variety of pop styles, including power pop and synth pop. And I'm trying to find, I've got a lot of notes, so I can't find it right now, but I'm sure I read something that the Police were trying to get away from this new wave thing that was coming through, in the UK.
Yeah, because I think
it's more authentic, more rock and roll, more punky.
Yeah, exactly. But it's clear that they didn't want to stick to one genre, isn't it?
Yeah,
they didn't want to be
very.
one thing.
They do flirt with it in Contact with that synth bass that I think is very interesting to listen to. Also, I thought that song...
and also written by Stuart Copeland, that one.
Contact, was it really? Well, that's you kind of get the impression from what we've heard that Stuart Copeland is really a master of many trades, not just drumming, but songwriting.
He's a composer as well for soundtracks.
Yeah, very much so. Excellent. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, bro? Oh, do you know what? Actually, sorry, I wanted to ask one thing of you. Death Wish, you know the song?
Yeah.
Very quickly, again, my little reminders things. When the pace quickens in that song, it really reminds me so much of an Iron Maiden song, which is crazy.
All right.
And I'll try and find... Go on.
It's a Bo Diddley beat.
Yes, that's what I was going to. I've got that here. I've literally got that Bo Diddley beat. How crazy is that, man? That's awesome.
It is fucking insane. I love that beat. It's one of my favorites, and it's sometimes used in modern music in many different ways, or disguised as something else. In this case, they start with a kind of a snare, kind of side stick on the rim of the snare and hi-hat, and then it jumps into this Bo Diddley beat. And it feels to me like this is the chorus of the song. There's no chorus. It's an instrumental vibe alternating with the verse most of the time. And again, great bass line.
Yeah.
And you have the boom, 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 which is the Bo Diddley groove, which is a very strong rhythm. They knew I think they were very clever to incorporate that in the song, and it breaks away from everything else before the song in the album.
Yeah. That's really cool. It's funny because that I was just thinking now when I said, which song was it where I said it was Bob Marley? Bring on the Night. Then I thought of the song Could You Be Loved by Bob Marley. Yeah. And it's got the intro of that song is could you be loved? That intro, think about it, that's Bo Diddley almost.
man,
And I've
never
never
thought
done
of
the
it.
research of the link between
Yeah,
bloody
which
rock
is
and
based
roll and
well,
reggae, but
which is based on a clave, isn't it?
yeah. And I
Like
haven't done enough research on
Afro-Cuban
reggae to
music.
know.
Yeah,
But that's interesting. Do you know the other song that gave off another vibe? Again, we've mentioned so many genres within this album, this episode, but you had something to say about the lyrics of this song. But the song "The Bed's Too Big Without You,"
yeah,
I just get this hugely Latin feel to it. Just the staccato notes in the riff, very unsettling, almost like a bossa, like a Latin groove. My point is that it's kind of unlike reggae. It's the one
yeah.
song where I feel instead of going for an obvious reggae vibe, they've gone for some kind of Latin. And I don't know if
They,
that's intentional or if they just tried to punk up a
well,
reggae beat or something, but it just stands out a bit to me.
I don't know when that started, but Andy Summers is a big fan of Brazilian music, especially bossa nova.
Wow,
So
well that
yes,
proves it, yeah.
yeah, he was. I remember watching this interview when they did the band's reunion. I don't remember when was that, but fairly recent.
Yeah.
Well, comparing to their long career of those musicians. So yeah, so they had the reunion tour. When they played in Brazil, they were on Brazilian TV, and I was there watching, and they were, going on about influences and stuff. And this reporter, she asked Andy Summers about his influences, and he said, "Well, your music, Brazilian music," and she said,
Really?
"No, you're joking." And then he started playing loads of Tom Jobim songs on the
Oh,
guitar.
wow.
He knew them all. He was just playing like, I know this. So yeah, I don't know if that was a more kind of a recent thing for him, if he started researching that kind of music after the Police. But I think he always had some Latin music and Brazilian music influences, and that obviously that's going to be there. So that's it. Whatever you listen to and whatever you attempt to play is going to become part of your style. And I
Yeah.
think they
Yeah.
they would not try to hide any of their influences, and they were not trying too hard to show the influences as well. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
very natural, especially when you're doing an album like that in a hurry,
Yeah.
like in
Exactly.
4 weeks.
Do you
There's no preparation.
do you because I know you're normally the lyric man. Have you looked into the lyrics of this album? Is there
Yes, I
any
did. Well,
themes going on?
starting from the song we were talking, "Beds to Be Without You." So this is the thing. I didn't read the book. Sometimes I don't like quoting books that I didn't read, but I found this information about that song, which is quite disturbing. It says the lyrics were inspired by an incident in which Sting's first girlfriend, she committed suicide after their breakup.
Oh wow.
So I don't know if it's true. It's from the book Walking on the Moon, the untold story of the Police and the rise of new wave rock.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
Quite
that's the
disturbing.
name of the book.
But it's sorry, go on.
Yeah. So it's I found, so I'm quoting this without having read the book. So, but I believe it is in the book. So yeah.
Isn't that's an odd? Again, I think we said the same thing with Supertramp, but the music doesn't necessarily reflect the darkness of the lyrics, do they? Because
No,
it's
not
not a
at all.
terrible, it's not a terribly dark song, is
It
it?
just feels like someone left or they ended the relationship, and then
Yeah,
it's well, I don't know if it's accurate, but that's
no, it's
that. And
interesting.
in terms of lyrics, the one I really liked, so it's the one that wasn't meant to be in the album, "No Time This Time." I
Okay,
think one of the most amazing things about rock music is to communicate with working class people, and the common people who are going about their business, and and hopping on crowded trains and going to work. And I love when rock music mentions the daily struggle of common people. And this
yeah.
song, "No Time This Time," I love this part of the song. "No time for a quick kiss at the railway station, just time for a suitcase sandwich and a morning paper. only time for timetables and transportation. No time to think, no time to dare."
Brilliant,
It's
nice.
like
Yeah,
it's poetic in a way, So
well,
yeah, I love it.
if you think like punk was probably lyrically, obviously punk was quite political, but at the same time it had it was able to bring audiences closer to the bands because they were able to relate, and they were saying, these are the daily struggles of people that they have in life, and you did the same. The same from those lyrics is this is the Police's sort of punk influence lyrically coming through and saying that we all struggle with the day-to-day life and the timetables of the
Exactly,
train.
exactly. Like when we're talking about Green Day and how they achieved to portray the life of an American teenager, or any American uh, young boy or girl at the time, and it's like it's about real life translated to lyrics and turned into music, and I love that, and I
Yeah,
think that they did a great job in this song. Although, as I said, that's from a previous single, it's the B side of a single, and I think the biggest achievement of this album is the fact that they just went for it, and
yeah.
they've managed to create, uh, arrange, record, and produce in 4 weeks at the studio.
Mm.
That's brilliant.
That's a great achievement, yeah, and the album sounds really good. I mean, I forgot to give everyone the little information. I mean, it's not like you need any more, but you've got the one thing we didn't mention was the release date, and it was released in October 1979, and they recorded it in between February and August of 79. But as you mentioned, it was sort of 4 weeks worth of recording, but various times in different months. The album is very famous, obviously. It's sort of their Abbey Road, isn't it? It's the one that everyone associates the Police with. In terms of accolades, Rolling Stone have named it the 369th greatest album of all time in their top 500.
Nice.
Do you know, I think we should talk about the title as well, because Reggatta De Blanc means white reggae.
Yes, yeah.
Which is quite funny.
Is it actual French, or they just made it up? I don't know.
think it makes sense. I used to speak French, so that makes sense to me, unless De Blanc means of white, sort of. Regatta, I kind of imagines reggae.
And I like that they just say, listen, we're not claiming to play reggae properly, isn't it? It's just like white reggae.
But isn't it more kind of that humor that they're going for? Those quirky songs like Does Everyone Stare, on Another Day. There's just little bits of humor that they've brought in, which I think is quite cool. Bro, is there anything else you want to chat about, or shall I go on to my monologue?
Again, I'll just say, listen to the album if you're not familiar with it yet, and if you know Message in a Bottle and you like that song, which is a classic, an absolute
then
classic.
spend 3 hours learning it at midnight.
If you like that kind of vibe, and if you like that song, you should listen to the album. Just saying that. I think it's one of the main goals of this show is to encourage people to go back and listen to whole albums and appreciate music as it should be.
Before I do my monologue, what's for you? What's rock and roll about this album?
I would say again the attitude of just let's just go and do it.
Yeah,
fine
point.
Like
rock and roll.
It's a DIY album.
Yeah, rock and roll is musical freedom. You can do whatever you want. So
do it yourself. Like no influence from the label. Not much money. No extra producers, like one producer, sound engineer, no extra musicians involved, just three highly creative minds with no boundaries. That's amazing. That's what it is. That's what's rock and roll.
Anyway, time for Laz's monologue.
Yes.
So the musicianship between these three gentlemen exceeds and excels in this album, delivering an album that has their punk energy, rock heaviness, but with a much stronger reggae vibe than their previous album. Each member delivers a potentially virtuosistic performance throughout the album, which, if isolated, seems eccentric and over the top, but coming together and making it part of a larger song, it realizes and executes the Police's hybrid style of rock, punk, and reggae. Songwriting-wise, the songs are really well structured and arranged, even down to the layers of guitar and the atmosphere created. For a band that were potentially targeting the pop world, the songs have plenty of time to breathe. They're never afraid to let each song run to the end and repeat riffs, giving each song the length and time to fully mature and develop. It's a really great album that also seems to have a sense of humour to it, featuring some funny vocal performances alongside some outdated surf/rock and roll riffs. The reggae vibe being quite prevalent throughout the album, but actually never dominating or overtaking this unique sounding rock band.
Wow, yeah, that's it.
Nice, yeah, summed up.
I love when you say never dominating, because it sounds to me that they didn't let any aspect of the album overpower any other aspect.
It's almost perfectly
It's such a
balanced, isn't
great,
it?
yeah,
It really
great,
is.
such a great
Yeah.
mix of loads of styles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys,
what an
thank you.
album.
I know, what an album. Go and listen to
Album.
it. As Felipe said,
Yeah.
go and listen to it. Guys, thank you again for joining us for another episode of the podcast. As usual, please go on our socials, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share everything you can with like-minded
Older stuff.
folks. Older stuff as well, yeah. I say it every time, but it helps us a lot. Giving us reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify mean the world to us, because whether you listen or not, it's not actually about how many listens that get us to the top of the charts and get us listened to more people. It's about exposure, and exposure is giving us ratings and reviews. So if you give us a 5-star rating on either of those things, if you think we're worth it, of course, then that would be hugely appreciated. Because
if you think we're worth 4 stars, just give us 5. Come on.
That also doesn't
Round
matter.
it
Yeah,
up.
4 stars is fine. If you think 3, 2, or 1 stars, then please email me and we'll have a conversation. No, I'm joking. But I think, like I said, it helps very much. It gets us exposed. It gets us to the top of the charts and the algorithms. And it means we get to be seen and heard by more people. And I hope that we do get to be seen and heard by more people, because I hope you guys can hear and see that we love the music we talk about, and even bands that, I've never listened to another Police album, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. And as it seems to be the case every week, we get a new album, we discuss it, we give our opinions, give our thoughts on it, and we're just always wanting to listen and be introduced to new music. So thank you for always being part of this journey with us. Felipe, tell them where they can find us.
You can find us on the internet.
There you go. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks.
And as always, keep on rocking, everyone.
And as usual, take care and long live rock and roll.